There are places that don't appear on tourist maps, places where the road signs have faded until the names are barely readable, towns that seem forgotten by time, where every storefront closes before sunset and every porch light is switched off long before midnight. Most people pass through without ever knowing they were there. Others never leave. If you ever find yourself driving through western Ohio after dark, pay attention to the signs. Somewhere between the empty fields and the endless tree lines, there's a county that doesn't officially exist anymore. Black Hollow County. The state closed it decades ago. At least, that's what the records say. The people who still live there never got the message. Daniel Mercer had been driving for almost 6 hours when the rain began. Not a summer shower, not the kind of rain that passes in 15 minutes. This was the slow, relentless kind that erased the horizon until the world looked like it had been painted in gray watercolors. His GPS had already lost signal 20 miles earlier. His phone displayed one lonely bar before giving up completely. He wasn't worried, not yet. He'd driven roads like this before. Long highways, tiny towns, old gas stations. Eventually, he'd find another main road. Eventually. Then his engine died. No warning, no strange noise. One moment the headlights carved through the rain. The next, silence. Daniel coasted onto the gravel shoulder and tried the ignition. Nothing. Again. Nothing. The dashboard flickered once before fading into darkness. For the first time all night, he noticed how quiet it really was. No passing cars, no crickets, no wind, only rain. He stepped outside. Cold water soaked through his jacket almost instantly. The road stretched in both directions, disappearing into walls of mist. No houses, no lights, nothing. Then he saw it. A weathered wooden sign standing crooked beside the road. The white paint had almost completely peeled away. Only a few words remained. Blackwater Ferry, next crossing 1/2 mile. Daniel laughed under his breath. A ferry? Out here? It didn't make much sense, but it was better than standing beside a dead car all night. He grabbed his backpack, locked the car, and started walking. The rain seemed to grow heavier with every step. His flashlight barely cut through the fog. The road sloped downhill until the trees opened onto a lake so still it looked like polished black glass. An old wooden dock stretched into the darkness. At the end of it, a single lantern swayed gently in the wind. No ticket booth, no attendant, no parked cars, just the dock. And tied to it, an old ferry. Its faded white paint had long since surrendered to rust. Water dripped from the railings. The windows were dark. The engine wasn't running, yet somehow it had arrived. Daniel looked around one last time. There wasn't another soul in sight. Then, from somewhere deep inside the ferry, a bell rang once, slow, heavy, almost welcoming. He hesitated. Every instinct told him to turn around, to wait until morning, to find another road. Instead, he stepped onto the wet wooden ramp. Behind him, the fog rolled across the shoreline until the road he'd walked in on was completely gone. The ferry groaned beneath Daniel's weight, not loudly, just enough to remind him that every board beneath his boots had been soaking in lake water for decades. He stepped onto the deck. The lantern hanging above the entrance flickered once, then steadied. There wasn't another passenger in sight. Rows of old wooden benches sat empty beneath a rusted metal canopy. Rain drummed softly against the roof overhead, while the lake beyond disappeared into walls of shifting gray. "Hello?" His voice carried farther than he expected. No answer, only the gentle slap of water against the hull. At the far end of the deck stood a small cabin. Its windows were cloudy with age. A faded sign above the door simply read, "Pilot House." The paint had almost completely peeled away. Daniel took a cautious step toward it. Halfway there, the ferry moved, not with the roar of an engine, not with the vibration of machinery. It simply drifted, almost silently. The dock slipped away behind him. Within seconds, the shoreline vanished into the fog. Daniel hurried back toward the stern. Wait! There was nowhere to go, nothing behind him but black water, nothing ahead except mist. The dock was gone, as if it had never existed. A cold knot formed in his stomach. He pulled out his phone. No signal, not even the time. The screen had frozen. 11:47. It never changed again. A sharp creak echoed somewhere below the deck. Then another. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. Not the random shifting of an old boat. Someone was walking. Daniel turned toward the pilot house. The cabin door was still closed. The footsteps continued. 1, 2, 3. Each one seemed to come from beneath the deck itself. He waited. The sound stopped. Silence settled over the lake once more. Then, a voice, barely louder than a whisper. Tickets. Daniel spun around. No one, only empty benches glistening with rainwater. The whisper came again, closer this time. Tickets, please. His pulse quickened. This isn't funny. Nothing answered. The lantern above him dimmed, just for a second. Then, brightened again. That's when he noticed something that hadn't been there before. One of the benches was no longer empty. An elderly woman sat near the center of the deck, perfectly still, hands folded in her lap. Her dark coat looked decades out of fashion. Water dripped from the brim of her hat, yet somehow she wasn't wet. Daniel would have sworn the bench had been empty only moments earlier. Ma'am. She didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even seem to breathe. Her eyes remained fixed on the black water sliding past the ferry. You came from the dock? Nothing. Finally, without turning her head, she spoke. You should have stayed with your car. Daniel felt every hair on his arms rise. I didn't have much choice. This time, she slowly turned to face him. Her eyes were pale, almost colorless, like photographs left too long in the sun. You always have a choice. Then she smiled. Not kindly, not cruelly, almost sadly. The ones who step aboard, her voice drifted away with the fog, are the ones the ferry has already chosen. The woman looked away, as though the conversation had already ended. Daniel stood frozen beside the bench, trying to convince himself there had to be an explanation. A hidden crew, some strange local tradition, anything. He took a slow step backward. I think I'd rather get off. The woman gave the slightest nod. So did everyone else. Daniel frowned. What does that mean? She didn't answer. Instead, she looked toward the bow of the ferry. Daniel followed her gaze. The fog ahead had begun to thin. Not enough to reveal the opposite shore, just enough for shapes to appear beneath the water. At first, he thought they were rocks. Dark shapes drifting just below the surface. Then one of them moved, slowly. A pale hand emerged from the black water. Its fingers slid across the side of the ferry, before disappearing beneath the surface once more. Daniel stumbled backward. What was that? The woman closed her eyes. They always reach. The lake became perfectly still. No rain, no wind, no sound. It was as if the entire world had stopped breathing. Then, the bell rang again. One heavy note, somewhere inside the ferry. The cabin door slowly creaked open. No one stepped out. The doorway simply waited. Dark, silent, inviting. Daniel's instincts screamed at him not to go near it. Instead, his feet carried him forward. One step, then another. The woman spoke without looking at him. If you hear your name, don't answer. He stopped. What? You'll hear someone you love. They always call. Daniel forced a laugh. This is insane. No one replied. The doorway stood open. A warm yellow light flickered somewhere inside, completely different from the cold lanterns outside. It looked welcoming. almost like home. Then he heard it. Daniel, his mother's voice, soft, gentle, exactly as he remembered it. He hadn't heard that voice in 12 years. His throat tightened. "Mom." The woman's eyes snapped open. "Don't." The voice came again, closer. "Daniel, come inside." Every memory came rushing back. Sunday dinners, Christmas mornings, hospital rooms, the last goodbye. His feet moved before he realized it. One step toward the cabin, another. The warm light spilled across the deck. It smelled like fresh coffee, like cinnamon, like home. His hand reached for the doorknob. Then he remembered something. His mother had never called him Daniel, not once. She'd always called him Danny. The warm light flickered. The voice changed, just for an instant, becoming deeper, older, almost hungry. "Daniel." He jerked his hand away. The light vanished. The doorway slammed shut with a deafening crack. The entire ferry shuddered. For the first time since boarding, the old woman smiled. "You remembered." Daniel stared at the cabin. "What is this place?" The woman slowly stood. For the first time, he noticed she cast no reflection in the rain-soaked deck. She turned toward the lake. "We're almost there." Daniel followed her gaze. Far ahead, through the thinning fog, lights appeared. Not electric lights, lanterns, hundreds of them, lining a shoreline that should not have existed. A town, waiting in absolute silence. The ferry slowed, not because anyone had lowered an anchor, not because an engine had changed speed. It simply glided toward the shore. The lanterns grew brighter, dozens, then hundreds, lined weathered wooden streets. Old storefronts stood exactly as they might have a century ago. A barber shop, a general store, a church with a white steeple. Every building glowed with warm light, yet not a single voice could be heard. No laughter, no music, no footsteps, only silence. Daniel stepped closer to the railing. "There's an entire town out there." The old woman nodded. "There always has been. But they said Black Hollow County was abandoned. They say many things." The ferry touched the dock without making a sound. The ramp lowered on its own. No ropes, no crew, no captain, only the long wooden walkway leading into the sleeping town. The woman remained where she was. "Aren't you coming?" She looked at him with tired eyes. "I've already crossed." Daniel didn't understand. Then he noticed something hanging beside the dock. An old wooden board, covered with faded photographs, each one protected beneath cracked glass. He stepped closer. Every photograph showed someone standing beside this very ferry. Families, travelers, children, soldiers, decades of faces, all staring into the camera. Then he found the newest photograph. It wasn't faded. It wasn't old. It had been taken tonight. Daniel was standing beside his broken-down car, rain falling around him. The exact moment before he'd started walking toward the ferry. His breath caught. "That's impossible," the woman quietly spoke. "The ferry remembers everyone." His hands trembled as he reached toward the photograph. Beneath it, someone had already carved a date into the wood. Tomorrow's date. Nothing else. Just tomorrow. "What does that mean?" "It means," the woman whispered, "you haven't decided." Daniel looked toward the town. Warm lights glowed from every window. Somewhere inside, he heard laughter, children playing, a piano, everything he'd spent years wishing he could go back to. Then, behind him, far across the black water, a single headlight appeared. His car, the road, reality. Somehow, both places existed at once. The woman finally stood. For some, the ferry is an ending. For others, it's one last chance. Daniel looked toward the road, then back toward the town. Every instinct pulled him in opposite directions. Slowly, He removed the photograph from the wall, folded it once, placed it inside his jacket. Without another word, he turned away from the town. He walked back across the ferry, across the empty deck, across the rain-soaked ramp. The moment his boots touched the road, the bell rang one final time. He turned. The ferry was gone. The dock, gone. The lake, gone. Only an empty field stretched before him beneath the rain. His car sat exactly where he'd left it. The engine started on the first turn of the key. His GPS lit up. Signal restored. Time restored. Everything normal, or so it seemed. 3 days later, after returning home, Daniel emptied his jacket onto the kitchen table. His wallet, his keys, his phone, and one old black and white photograph. The one he'd taken from the ferry. He stared at it for a long time, because sometime after he'd left Black Hollow County, the picture had changed. He was no longer standing beside the road. He was standing on the ferry, looking directly into the camera. Behind him, someone else stood in the fog, watching, waiting, holding an old lantern, and beneath the photograph, words that had not been there before. Next crossing Thursday, Daniel checked the calendar. Tomorrow was Thursday. Outside, somewhere far beyond his window, a single bell rang once. This has been Grim Told Horror. I will see you in the dark. Before you go, if tonight's story made you think twice before taking the next lonely road, share it with someone who enjoys a good scare. Leave a candle in the comments so I know you made it safely to the end. If you're new here, subscribe and ring the bell. A new original horror story arrives every Thursday at 7 p.m. Until then, keep the lights on, keep listening, and remember, some stories don't end when the narration does. I will see you in the dark.